Okay. So I'm Nikki Fiacco, and I am the host of the Alumni Network. We're kicking off with our very first guest today. I'm very excited. Peter Marotto is with us today, and he was one of the first people in LinkedIn to raise his hand and say he was interested in having a conversation about his service year and sharing some resources and skills that he has collected along the way and has also shared with some of our chapters throughout the country. If you're not aware, there may be a chapter near you if you're interested in getting more involved, and that's something that we can work through. But I'm really excited to have this conversation with Peter today. Correct. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and talk about your service year and what exactly you do. But it's my understanding that you are actually a 2-year service member. You went through twice, so kudos to that. I was a 1-year AmeriCorps alum, and you did your service in Massachusetts. Okay, let's say that correctly. Massachusetts.
Yep,
Sorry.
Massachusetts. Yep.
Yep. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did for your service year, how you got involved, and then kind of what you took away from it. So this is going to be all about you, Peter. Take it away.
All right, no pressure. So where I served was out of Springfield College in Springfield, Massachusetts. They have an AmeriCorps program out of the college that actually centered around having graduate students serve. So and at the time, I don't know if it's changed, other places are doing this, but at the time, that was not only a rarity, but Springfield was one of the only places really doing that. I served in 2006 and 2007. However, their service year, being that it was within the school year, was, I guess they consider it part-time, was like 1,800 service hours. September to May was the service contract, as it were. And I actually didn't start my first service year until the winter of 2006 for that semester, for the spring semester, winter into spring. When I went to Springfield College for my graduate degree, I was working full-time at the time and going to school full-time my first semester. And then I was like, well, can't keep that pace up. Let me go full-time on campus. And I had seen a paper flyer on the wall about the service, and there was choices of capacity building, academic coaching, and all these other fields to do. And of course, it reminded you that there was a stipend and all this, and I was like, this might be the way to go for a lot of reasons. I knew about AmeriCorps in passing. I knew that it started around, I graduated high school in 1993. I knew it started about a year later. I knew little bits, but I never really gave it much thought. But I did know it was a way to serve the community and essentially be part of something a little bit bigger than just yourself.
Yep.
I applied, didn't really think much that I would even get an interview or that it would be possible. Especially given the middle of the year, but they needed somebody for a capacity building role for a program that was run out of WGBY, the public television studio in Springfield. And so I said, sure, did the 1,800 hours in half the time for the first year.
Oh, wow.
And joined up for the next year to work in academic coaching. So that's the big thing. Capacity building was a program with the Springfield school system to try and engage students more and get them not better, but definitely more engaged and try to help them succeed. I was kind of the liaison person with the schools and trying to coordinate some of the community activities that were done. Two very mixed results. It wasn't the easiest program to walk in on. So
yeah, I always find it fascinating of how we all find ourselves in a service opportunity, in a national service opportunity is like, well, why not, right? Like it's kind of there's so many different spectrums of getting into national service where it's an opportunity that opens up to us, and we kind of are like, well, sure, why not? My experience is like, I didn't even know I was applying for an AmeriCorps program. I was like, I think I'm applying for a job, and then I had this 2-week training, and I was very confused. But then I got this really nice sweatshirt that I decided to wear for this, kickoff event with the legacy AmeriCorps logo that we have. And capacity building is an interesting thing, right? Because it's almost like you kind of find your niche there. So I'm curious, like, during your service year, you mentioned that you went through your service hours pretty quickly. During your service year, was it very clear, like, these are the responsibilities, or were you able to kind of like play it out to your strengths? And then I'm curious if we can wrap that back around to like what you're doing now, or what you did afterwards, where you built that during your AmeriCorps year, because that was definitely my experience.
Yeah. A yes and a no and a kind of in all of it.
Yeah.
Biggest thing is that the program itself had some problems before I got involved. It wasn't well received by a lot of even by a lot of teachers. And there is always the issue, and coming from being a public school teacher, I know this. There is sometimes you have this divide of people saying schools need to be run like a business. That's what's wrong with them. That's why the kids aren't succeeding. We were also in the midst of No Child Left Behind, which was the whole time on task where recess play was being taken away and all that. And there were people in the program that I was in capacity building for that had that mentality too. They're not in school enough. They're not doing enough when they're in school. And I don't necessarily agree with any of that on multiple levels, including my graduate research was on how you actually use play for learning and for helping with behavior issues. So there's a lot of evidence to the contrary of some of that. But the program, what I learned out of it, or what I gained, being that it was out of the public television studio, and the general manager for the TV studio at the time, Russ Piotr, he was very good about reminding me to focus on the actionables. If there was a problem, we might address what occurred, and then he would always say, okay, let's move forward. What can we do now? What are the actionables to solve? Not how are we just going to dwell on what happened and what went wrong and who are we going to point fingers at? It was, we know this didn't succeed here and there and the other. Let's move forward. And so that was that was probably the biggest thing I learned during that year. I will also say, being that it was through a college program, we also had some leeway. We went to, myself and another member, we went to a training that was provided with, I don't remember what school he was out of, what university, but there was a philosophy professor doing a workshop over several weeks about civil rights and various things. We actually read many essays from different groups. We read letters from Birmingham jail and discussed takeaways and all that. And it was a small seminar, small group. It was maybe 5 of us tops. Those counted towards service hours too, which I think actually was really valuable. Having professional development inside of your service is necessary. But through the people I met in the program that I was doing with WGBY, I did meet some people at different functions and ended up setting up a secondary one-off service with the Pioneer Valley Habitat for Humanity chapter, where myself and 3 other members from Springfield College went one weekend and worked on one of the builds in the area. That's still, and we also did another build the year later, another one-off weekend, but the one in April of 2006 is still, to me, the best one-off takeaway. I still have a picture of the 4 of us from the build. That's that's the memory I still have and cherish. What I've learned, of course, is what Russ taught me, which what are the actionables, focus on that. To that end, the habitat thing, I just kind of floated the idea to somebody at Springfield, like, can we do this? Because they said, and they were like, yeah, can we do it as an AmeriCorps? Yes, kind of asked, but also kind of planned on, well, we're going to try this anyway. That is, and we did little side projects on campus too. I think that does translate into my job. I've worked for the same company. It's a security company. I've worked for them since 2011. And I've used to be in operations for about 7 years in security operations. And now I'm in the corporate training side of the house. And there's always little projects, whether formal projects or the side projects, where somebody asks, can you help us out? And you do the AmeriCorps thing of, well, let's get things done and
let's try it. Yeah, let's get it done. Right.
Yeah. And whether my boss likes it or not, sometimes I don't ask, I just start it. And then we're now engaged in this project as well, because it's a little bit of let's just see let's see how we can assist. And if they don't need us anymore to assist in this project, that's fine. But if they do, that's fine. So I think I definitely have a big takeaway from Russ saying, always focus on those things, but then also the little side projects that we did on campus and off campus were those things. We also did a spring cleanup in 2007 of the Forest Park Zoo in Springfield. That was with a bunch of kids, and we, any one-off thing, it's like, keep busy, find a way to help. And I've kind of taken that with me in my job, because also I volunteer with it's called InfraGard, INFRAGARD. It's a thing that it's public-private partnership with the FBI, with what they call sectors. So commercial facilities is buildings, malls, all that stuff. There's energy sector. It's the public-private partnership to keep people. There's so many people in private sector that in like the energy sector for the power companies, they manage all these things to keep it running. If they see a threat that the FBI should know about, they inform, but they also get information.
Wow.
And so I volunteered and been a part of the Connecticut chapter since 2012. And not that there's necessarily a lot to do, but the idea is carry the service forward, keep finding ways to be involved.
And I know that wasn't like everybody's AmeriCorps experience. One of the things I am finding is that like there's so many different pockets of AmeriCorps experiences. Like you have Teach for America, that's very specific. You're in a classroom, you're teaching, right? And then you have City Year, and you have so many different opportunities. You have direct programs, you have small programs, big programs, but that was my experience too, right? Like during my service year, because I was doing I was doing capacity building as a volunteer coordinator. Any opportunity that I had to try something new that was within the scope ish of my position description, I took advantage of it. And I really feel like during my service year and then after my service year, it really catapulted me into developing this network. And I just want to preface by saying, I do not work for LinkedIn, but maybe I should, but I am leveraging this platform like never before. And this AmeriCorps alum LinkedIn group is so amazing. And just the opportunities that show up. And I think it goes back to what you were talking about like, well, let's just do it. Let's just try it. Let's just see if it works. And I think if anything, the majority of AmeriCorps members, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure people will have comments somewhere once I post this somewhere. But it's resiliency, right? And it's like figuring it out, because you're kind of put into a position where you're like, we want you to do this project and we have it half baked, and we're just kind of hoping that you have the rest of the ingredients, and then we'll have a cake by the time you're done with your service year, or cupcakes or something, or a pizza, I don't know, or a vegan, whatever, pot roast. But that was my experience too, where it was like, let's just try this. And it sounds like it's converted into the work that you're doing now.
Yeah, definitely. The work is, at the end of the day, it's trying to help the best we can in some capacity. And being in a field of, again, moving from teaching in both public and private schools, and then or parochial schools, and then having worked for the YMCA for a little while, and then going back into, in fact, when I was starting grad school, I was working in security and when I say security, people always perk up and they say, oh, cyber. I'm like, no, it was building and physical. It was warehouse.
Yeah.
It was, and then all of a sudden I'm no longer interesting. all of a sudden the dumb guard is like, no, there's a lot of variation to this program, to this thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's listed as I think by US News and World Report, it's listed as like a social service, human service job,
Wow.
category ranking, because you're helping
Oh,
people.
sorry.
You're helping
Yeah.
people. That's the job.
Yeah. And that was one of the reasons why, I was so interested in bringing AmeriCorps alums in to hear everyone's voices. There's hundreds of thousands of us who have gone through a service year. They're all different. We all experience different things, but the bottom line is we're no longer AmeriCorps members. We're doing something different, and we're all doing wildly different things right now. So who was to imagine? It's not like you were like, oh, wake up one day and be like, I want to serve for AmeriCorps, and then I want to be in security for, malls or in the buildings. Like, it just kind of evolves. And I think it's so important for us to remember as AmeriCorps alums, especially those alums that might be hearing this that are newly out of their service year and feel like they need to do some altruistic, nonprofit-y sort of, like, actually you could do just about anything.
Yeah, well, it's the old thing of some people do I don't want to go corporate. And
Yeah.
I hate to burst any bubbles, but nonprofits are still corporate. At the managerial level, and at the trying to raise funds and all that,
Right.
on the ground level, it might not seem corporate, but it is. And anybody that tells you different is telling you something that's not true. I've worked in enough nonprofits that I know it's as much corporate as any other corporation.
Yeah.
It's what you do with it. And I will say, you've done your service, you've done your altruistic service in AmeriCorps, you've done your national service. Now, if you get into a job that, not that there's anything wrong with being in a nonprofit, or there's always some people that say, oh, I don't care what I make for a living and all this. Well, think about this. You could be working whatever nonprofit or other job that you try to go into, and then have to work other side jobs to make ends meet. Or if the opportunity comes along, because especially given that there's now businesses and states and municipalities that are looking for people, and they actually have on the AmeriCorps, I think it's the alums website, the places that actually give preferential hiring for alums.
Yeah.
Well,
The employers of national service. Yep.
employers not, yeah, forgot the name of it. Thank you. Well, okay, if you end up with a job like that does pay you pretty well, you can now you have a little free time, because you're not working 3 extra jobs.
Yeah.
To volunteer with an association, work at, do the other stuff that you want to do that is from that, whatever made you want to go into AmeriCorps in the first place is that you like to help. Now
Yeah.
you have the time. So go for it. There's nothing, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong one way or the other, but some
Right.
people it's all or nothing. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question, and then I want to dive in a little bit to some of the trainings and work that you've done with some of the chapters. And we can define what a chapter means and stuff like that. But one of the things I want to ask is, you mentioned that one memory of that build of the habitat. Are there any members that you served with, or you served tangentially, or people that you still stay in contact with from your service year, and just what is that relationship like?
There, two of the three that I did the build with, I am still friends with on Facebook, because one lives in the Pacific Northwest, the other is in the Springfield area, but even though it's only 30 miles north of me, we don't
Yeah.
really, it's amazing how easy it is not to find the time.
Yeah.
The other person I think is middle of the country somewhere. I would love to be able to reconnect, and there would, it would be great. We don't necessarily all keep in touch, because it being that it was a program through well, it's not just the program where it was, but everybody moved in their own directions, and this
Yeah.
also, the first year with those if not both of that, all of them, definitely one of them was their second year was 2006. And, that's getting on there in years since. So it's
Yeah.
you start to realize just how long ago it was actually when you went down the line. So I don't necessarily keep in regular contact with anybody in particular.
Mm-hmm.
But it's similar to the alumni group,
Yeah.
Boston chapter. I went there in 2010 for a meet and greet, and then one other thing at one other little day seminar, and then fell off not really doing much. And then there was I think it was either an email blast or something about the workshops, that series that they were doing. And if anybody wants to participate, reach out. And the people that I reached out to, I don't remember from the meet and greet. So they may be, I think they're actually, most of them are new members.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's interesting. I don't know how well we do keep in touch with other members. And because I also feel like AmeriCorps is I tried getting involved with the Connecticut chapter of alums once, and very good group people, but it also feels very much like they all felt like they had been, I did a volunteer thing for a year or two.
Yeah.
And the term volunteer, or the people that say, oh, it was my gap year.
Yes. Yes.
It wasn't your
Yeah.
gap year. You served in AmeriCorps. You served national service. It's not a gap year. It's something.
Well, yeah,
I don't know how to
I'm going to
call it, but
share.
it's something
Yeah,
more.
I'm going to share a story that I know we talked about before we were planning this. But when I was the director of an AmeriCorps program, it was AmeriCorps week, and I wanted to do a whole bunch of postings on our AmeriCorps members. But our AmeriCorps members at the time called themselves Volunteer Maryland Coordinators. And that's what I called myself when I was an AmeriCorps member. So there was this disconnect. And I think that we're coming, I hope that AmeriCorps is coming around to where, yes, we serve in different programs, but we're 1 million strong. We're 1 million alumni who have served as AmeriCorps members in different ranks and different programs and in different ways. So during that year, I was like, oh my gosh, we have to rebrand. And I did a whole training the very first day. I had a script for every AmeriCorps member. And I said, this is how you're going to introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Nikki Fiacco, an AmeriCorps member serving with Volunteer Maryland at Anne Arundel County Recreation and Parks. And this is what I do. And I got a lot of pushback from our alumni that were like, we're VMC, we're Volunteer Maryland coordinators. I'm like, no, actually, you're an AmeriCorps member. You're an AmeriCorps member. You had AmeriCorps service. And actually, AmeriCorps is that leveraged brand where we can get into this, 12, 13, 14, whatever, 20,000 people strong alumni group and post a job opportunity with our organization and know what kind of people are going to be applying for that position, or refer somebody. I have no problem putting opportunities in that alumni group, because I have a pretty good understanding of who's still involved with alumni or with AmeriCorps are the types of people that I would probably want to refer or work with. So we're bringing that back around, because I definitely want to talk about like the resources and skills that you've developed with some of the chapters. Tell me about, or tell us about the chapters that you worked with, and then what you kind of did with them, and then maybe share a little bit so we could take away something with, maybe we need to tweak our resumes, or we need to tweak our interview. I mean, I know we talked about all kinds of things, so I'm going to leave it up to you, but what chapters did you work with, and what do you want to share?
Definitely. The only one I worked with and did this workshop with was Boston, the Boston chapter. I went to a picnic with the Connecticut chapter pre-COVID. I don't remember exactly what year, but and again, very nice. We just haven't had a lot of opportunity. And I also will say on my own end, between looking at the alumni page on LinkedIn and getting pings and emails and all that, there's a lot I'm sure I miss.
Lots to follow up. Yes.
Yeah. Somebody says, hey, come out to this or that. A while back, I did look into something with the state of Connecticut where it was like a little bit of a panel discussion one time, but I don't remember the group, but there was somebody with AmeriCorps that I spoke with a few times. That was more on overall volunteer development, that sort. And I say volunteer in that the groups that need social service volunteers, and they try to leverage national service through AmeriCorps members and all that. With Boston, with the alumni Boston chapter, they put out an email blast around February or so of last year of 2022, asking about, can we get people for career workshops of any type? And I floated the idea of a resume workshop.
Yeah.
And it was specifically around that issue that people are putting down that they were a volunteer. They put down the place that they volunteered at, or that they were there, that they were put,
serving,
their service, their placement site as the thing, not AmeriCorps, on their resume, on LinkedIn. And so they said, sure, that sounds great. I put together a PowerPoint explaining it, and I went down the line of, I think I used the alumni group on LinkedIn and really just looked at other people's, what did they put down for AmeriCorps? And there was one person who served in the early 90s. So he served, way back when it first began. Again, AmeriCorps was kind of in there, but it wasn't listed as the main thing. So little icon of the AmeriCorps logo wasn't on LinkedIn. There were other people, lots of people that would put down the placement site as their place. There was somebody that did put AmeriCorps, but put it in two places, under job experience and as volunteer. But the biggest one is the people that just didn't put it down as AmeriCorps service. And then I also explained on a resume where to put it, because again, a lot of people would put it as volunteer. And I said, well, I've been putting it on my resume since 2007. So at the time, I put it down under Corporation for National and Community Service. And then I put AmeriCorps and all the details, and in a lot more detail. And then for a while it was rebranded part of USA Freedom Corps. So I put that down. And I also explained that the further away you get from your service, you might not need to put down everything you did. But it should never go away off your resume.
That's really good. I'm going to put a little pin right there. I think that's really, really good advice. And if any AmeriCorps alum are listening to this and they're looking at their resume, and we have this like thing that we think that our resumes need to be one page, but sometimes they're not. I think that's so important, Peter, that you should always keep your AmeriCorps service on there, even if it's just one line, your service year.
Yeah.
I even put the logo on my resume, to be honest with you. I'm like,
No, it works.
let's
Yeah.
try this.
Yeah. I put down national service as the header, and then AmeriCorps, I put down, Springfield College, put the service years, I put, and if I have the room, I put down capacity building and academic coaching. I don't put anything more than that, because also if somebody wanted to look it up, they can look at my LinkedIn that has more detail under work experience, and AmeriCorps is listed as the work experience, and AmeriCorps is listed as the company. So
That's what I was going to follow up and ask you. There's, putting on your resume, but people use, like, employers use LinkedIn now. So in your opinion, you feel like putting AmeriCorps in your work experience is more powerful than putting in your volunteer?
Oh yeah, because it is, I mean, it's also, I know the stipend isn't a lot of money, but it is a job from the standpoint of it's something you're getting paid for.
Right.
And I also, people put down different things for their header, like whether they put down their job title or other things. Sometimes it's just what profession they're in. And some people will put multiple things. I knew a member of InfraGard that put down a variety of things, including that they were veteran of both the Army and the Coast Guard. So I when I saw that, I'm like, let me put a few things down. Doesn't matter. And they can look at my current role to see my job title. But one of the things I put down is AmeriCorps alum right on the at, just because it is, not everybody will join AmeriCorps. Not everybody will say, let me take a year out of my life to volunteer again, take a year out of my life to serve the country and serve the people in my community. It's not everybody is willing to do it for a variety of reasons. I mean, again, the stipend is there, but you're still under they still use the old poverty experience.
Yes. And I will say too, like, not only will not everybody step up to serve, not everybody will finish, right? Like, my experience of being a program director for almost 4 years, we had members that just, they couldn't finish for whatever reason or another. So while, we all got through it somehow, some way, we finished our service year, and, you and I are sitting here talking about our service year, and then also talking about how it helped us move forward. Some people just didn't have that opportunity to finish it out, right? And again, for all different reasons. But I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think it's important that as AmeriCorps alum, that we remember and we know that our service to our community was something that was somewhat of a sacrifice. Like, people have different sacrifices. Like, mine was maybe a little bit easier than others. I didn't have to go find an apartment and live on, the minimum wage. I had another, income coming in. But to your point, I feel like it's really important to recognize how impactful and rare this experience is. And when an AmeriCorps alum's going in for a new opportunity, whether it's early in your career, or for my case, I served as an AmeriCorps member when I was in my mid-30s. So for those people who are like looking to transition into something that they did, into something new, a year in national service can be that. And you can proudly say, yeah, I took a year out and I made it work. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree. It is, first I served in my mid-30s as well, or early 30s, I should say. Which is especially because I was lucky because Springfield College, their program, they didn't expect you to put your life on hold to serve. They wanted you to, first, that's why they rolled your internships and your programs. They had a vast network to make sure that your service was tied to what you were studying. So it was really good that way. But they didn't prohibit you from taking a part-time job. where
Mm,
some groups do.
yeah.
And this is, like you said, some people, I remember when I first joined the alumni group on LinkedIn, saw people commenting that they didn't finish because they couldn't afford it. And
Hmm.
there was that discussion. And I remember somebody mentioning, well, it's supposed to be the poverty experience that you get. And I'm dead set against the poverty experience for so many reasons. One is a person that joins AmeriCorps or the military or any other thing where there's a stipend and education awards attached, are a lot of people that are joining like that are joining because they need those things to get ahead and have the money for training and whatever else they need. And I find the idea laughable if it wasn't so sad that the people that can survive on the poverty experience are people like me that, well, I already had a credit card. If I
Mm,
really needed something, yeah, I
mm,
knew I'd
mm,
be paying it off later, but I could do it. I
hmm.
had housing. I didn't have to
Yeah.
worry about that. Whereas somebody that sees this as an opportunity, but they are already living in poverty or just, teetering on the edge, and they're not in a position for family to help them out or anything else, they might not finish because it's not an experience to them. It's they, this isn't experience, this is their life. And
Yeah.
I also think it's a very, let's not mince words. It's a very white savior-esque thing to it too. It's the, hey, we learned how to take the bus. We learned how to live
Mm,
this experience. But did we? And
yeah.
I think again, there's so many people that the education award, you can end up getting, there's a lot of certificates out of a lot of schools that you could fund fully through that education award. Whereas
Yeah.
people that if they don't finish, they don't get the award.
Right. And I think AmeriCorps is turning 30 years old this year. I think that there is a big revolution with AmeriCorps, and I think the current administration is really looking at it from how can we make this a workforce development that's
Yeah.
supporting our communities. And it seems like, I mean, in your 30, like if you think about AmeriCorps as a person in your 30s, isn't that when you kind of like, doing it? Am I supposed to
Yeah.
be doing it this way? Is it supposed to look this way? So I am optimistic that especially with so many organizations that are involved with national service
Mm.
tangentially and directly, and I know this because I come from an executive director position where I was in those conversations, and that renaissance is actually happening, and leadership wants that to change. So I am optimistic that the experience is going to be extremely beneficial, continue to be extremely beneficial for the AmeriCorps member. And what my hope is with this little thing I have going here is that we can offer some support for alumni. So as we wrap things up, I wanted to just give you an opportunity to share any last like tidbits or skills or insights about as an AmeriCorps alum going forward in the depths of your career, just starting your career. What are some things for us to think about, like whether it's on our resume or interviewing and talking about our national service? What are a couple, like, let's just say like 3 tips you want to leave folks with?
Well, the first is definitely put it down as national service. Make sure it's prominent that it's AmeriCorps so that it's there. The other is, unless you absolutely have to, don't use the education award for your student loans,
Mm,
because the ed award is going to be maybe a year's worth of your interest, whereas a certificate you take in any field that you take it in, nobody can take that away from you. And you
mhm.
can get a lot of them. I used the ed award for a certificate in finance through Cornell. You can use it for something that can't be taken away. And I say that because it's so valuable. The last is actually connect and
Yeah.
be a member, and take the page out of people that have served the country in other ways, particularly military. No, very few times do they shy away about saying that they had served their country. AmeriCorps members are very bad about saying, I served my country.
Mm-hmm.
You did. You served your country because you helped out. It's not glamorous, and it doesn't always amount to as huge a change as we always want, but you served in some capacity. And own it, basically, is own it and acknowledge it. Because if you don't, nobody's going to acknowledge it for you.
Wow, what a powerful thing to close with. Own it. I love it. Like, own it. You served your country, own it. That was wonderful. And I when I went through the comments on LinkedIn, there were a lot of like questions and comments about the education award. And I definitely want to do something in maybe like a panel style or something, because I think there's a lot of illusion around the education award and it might not seem super easy on how to use it. So I think that was super key as well, of not just throwing it at your student loans where it doesn't really make a difference. But I know people who went to Alaska and did like a kayaking trip because it was an outdoor education. It was like an outward bound program. I know somebody that went to Italy for a culinary program with their education award. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so creative. So I'd love to circle back around and have that conversation. But again, Peter, I think that like you nailed it on the head, right? When you said, connect and be a member. You served your country, just own it. I think that's super powerful. So final words, or how would you like to stay connected with this group? What do you think the best way of people, if they want to follow up on something you said, or we don't want to bombard you with emails, but maybe we want to just do LinkedIn.
I mean, LinkedIn is the easiest way, because then we can connect both as connections. We can be both, anybody that connects with me can be part of the alumni group, all that stuff. Obviously, please connect. Message me, great, that would be fine. I can't tell you if you message me with like an unsolicited sales call, I'm gonna necessarily even respond. And I'm very good about ignoring junk mail. I'm one of those people that has a lot of unanswered emails. When I see that they're junk, I don't even delete them, I just leave them. But
that's funny.
But if it's a good connection, I'll read it and I'll definitely connect. And LinkedIn is the easiest way, because then no matter what, if we change email addresses or change phone numbers or any of that stuff, it's still there. So I think it's a great way, because also then we hopefully get not just me connecting with one member, but okay, maybe a bunch of us end up connecting because through the group itself. So I'm totally great with that. Yeah.
That's great. Well, again, Peter, like I said to you before we started this recording, thank you so much for being my guinea pig. I'm so excited. I think that this was a great kickoff to a conversation with AmeriCorps alum and sharing. I think I want to call it like AmeriCorps Alum Network or something. I don't know. I have to come up with something snazzy. But I think you shared so many great, such good advice, especially with putting the AmeriCorps experience on your resume and never letting it fall off. Definitely putting it in as a work experience and not a volunteer opportunity. And when you speak about it in your conversations or in your interviews, or if it pops up, it was a national service. You served your company, your country, and you just need to own it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to, this was a great conversation, and I'm going to stop the recording, and thank you again. And I'll have some closing better than this, but for now, it's just thank you for listening, and there will be more.
My pleasure.